Yeah, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Erica and the rest of the KryptoSeoul team for putting on such a great event. I think it's really important for the Asian ecosystem to start getting more opportunities for such high quality speakers and candidates to come in and participate in these events. So just anecdotally, I've been to the first ETH Berlin, the first ETH Denver, the first ECC, and just seeing the amount of quality of candidates that kind of come out there, the value they create for the ecosystem over the next few years is amazing. I'm excited to see what you guys have created over the past few days and will over the next few months and so forth. So today I wanted to kind of provide a little bit insight to what's been happening on the upgrades related to Ethereum, what that means from the staking perspective, and what it really means when the merge is coming. There's a lot of misconceptions that people really can't wrap their heads around. So it's not going to be too technical. The purpose of the talk is not to dive deep into the technical nuances of this technology, but to just clarify all the misconceptions that do exist and that we usually come across on a daily basis. So as mentioned, my name is Aqeel with the Ethereum Foundation, also lead some product and design projects for the leading client teams like Status Nodes and Lighthouse and so forth, trying to make Ethereum staking and node operators tooling a lot more easier and accessible for the rest of the community. If you do need to reach me, you can easily find me on Twitter at QNOU, scan that QR code, or just simply talk to me after the event. Also, if you do have more informational needs around these topics, please do check out the Ethereum website. The team has been doing a great job making this information very accessible, easy to understand, and there's a large team of volunteer translators that come in and translate this information as well. So if you do have Korean skills and are able to translate some of this information, that would be amazing for you to get involved. All right, so as mentioned, over the past few years, there's been a lot of talk about the move to proof of stake. Since I've been involved in the ecosystem for over 6 years, we've been talking about Serenity. The names have changed. It's gone from ETH2 to now the merge. But at the end of the day, the core issues and the technology that we've been working on has been a part of the core Ethereum roadmap for the longest time. So when people talk about like the merge is delayed, in the context of the longer term, these delays are very small blips. This technology, these problems have been looked at and been tackled for a very long time. And it's very important that we get these right rather than rushing into something just because there's external pressure coming in. So from today on forward, if anyone that kind of asks you what's going on with Ethereum, what ETH2 is, what the merge is, you basically tell them that Ethereum is moving to a more sustainable and a secure home. So even though there's a lot of changes that are happening on the back end, the front end, the users are not really going to see any impact. Additionally, the only impact will happen is for individuals that are using our validators or running nodes, et cetera. So from your perspective, or if you're a normal user, please don't fall for any scams telling you to update your wallets or anything that related to that. So I think it'd be important to kind of highlight why we are moving to proof of stake in the first place, what that means, and what are the benefits of actually moving to proof of stake. As we're all aware, there's a relative energy consumption when it comes per transaction. So for instance, the Bitcoin energy consumption is quite high in relation to the Ethereum proof of stake consumption. Proof of work consumption. But when we move to proof of stake, that decreases exponentially even lower to the point that running a node or a validator is equivalent of running a personal PC. So one of the biggest benefits is that reduction in energy consumption, which leads to us actually requiring less Ether issuance to incentivize participation in the network. We'll talk a little bit more about the ETH issuance and what impact this has with other factors as well. On top of that, there's lower barriers to entry and increased accessibility for participation. So this means that an individual with a normal home computer, a laptop, maybe a Raspberry Pi can now actually create blocks on the blockchain. And hopefully, at some point, mobile phones can come into the ecosystem with some line clients and other properties as well. Additionally, because of that lower barrier of entry, this also improves the security and decentralization of the ecosystem. So more individuals come in, there's more validators, there's more nodes running, that means that we have more distribution, more decentralization in the ecosystem. And on top of that, it also causes us to have much cheaper security for the same price. So there's actually like a 5 to 20% gain for the cost per security when you move to proof of stake. In addition to that, the 51% attacks become a lot more expensive for individuals to try to execute on. And that if someone does actually succeed, we have better recovery mechanisms. So the community can actually choose to adopt a chain that was truthful and not choose the 51% attack. This was not possible with proof of work and will be coming in as well. Additionally, this does not bring in scalability, but it allows us to have better secure implementations of scaling solutions like sharding. You'll have more opportunities, obviously, to learn about sharding implementations related to Ethereum over the next few years, but it's just a clarification that scaling is not coming with the merge, but it does provide opportunities for us to start implementing some of that stuff later on. So some of the common misconceptions are, is ETH coming soon? The answer is no, but the merge is, and we'll talk about what that actually means a little bit further. Is Ethereum moving to proof of stake from proof of work as a consensus mechanism? Yes, very soon. Will there be a new Ethereum mainnet coming? No, the execution layer will remain the same. So the network that you're used to using right now, the transaction history, everything stays consistent. You don't have to worry about anything, and you continue as you were. Will there be a new E2 token for stake Ether? No, it's the same token that's been locked up in the beacon chain, and it will continue to be so. Will there be a proof of work consensus layer that will stick around after the merge? No. Will there be a fork in the Ethereum after the merge and maybe a proof of work chain emerges? You've been seeing a lot of noise about this on Twitter. Realistically, there's no incentives. There's also some technical issues around chain IDs not changing. So the likelihood of someone actually trying to sustain a fork is very highly unlikely, but you never know. So I'm guessing a lot of you are still asking, but really, when E2? And the fact of the matter is what you guys really thought about as ETH1 or ETH2 is really the execution layer and the consensus layer coming together. And what we get at the end of the day is just Ethereum once again. Just a small inside joke. That little dog was something we saw on the street that looked like a little panda. We can't take it back into Canada. If anyone from here wants to adopt it, please do so. It would be amazing. So as mentioned, the merge is coming, and you can scan that QR code to kind of read the blog post about why the naming happened around calling it the merge, what complications it's trying to address, and so forth. But internally, as an organization, we kind of frame this narrative around the merge as an upgrade that we're doing to an engine mid-flight. So the spacecraft has to continue flying and operating, and this change has to actually happen simultaneously. So there's no downtime, and that even the network doesn't really need to know that the change has happened, and all this needs to be automated. So that's one of the biggest complications with the merge, is that all of this needs to happen automatically, and that it needs to happen in tandem where nothing causes some sort of catastrophic downtime to the network. So as long as we are going through the process of the testnets, et cetera, is to ensure that the quality and the security of the network is in complete. So this diagram actually kind of shows you the Ethereum roadmap in relation to the merge and where we are in relation to the merge. So basically, we're currently at the bottom of the stack where the Ethereum state and the execution layer is paired with the proof of work consensus mechanism. So the transaction, dApp, contracts, accounts are on the execution layer, and then moving in tandem with the proof of work consensus. But in December 2020, the beacon chain launched and started running in tandem with the rest of the chain. But the consensus layer for beacon chain is drastically different, that the beacon chain does not have the transactions or the contracts or the accounts baked into the beacon chain. So it's just only there to serve the purpose of the consensus mechanism. And when the merge, when the Bellatrix upgrade and the Perispark upgrade happen to kind of allow the cross communication between execution layer and the consensus layer, that will trigger the TTD to start the merge. And when that happens, we'll basically just cut off proof of work and continue with the proof of stake. And what actually happens in that case is, as you can see currently with proof of work Ethereum today, the execution layer kind of is housed with the transactions, base fees, all that information within the proof of work mechanism, and we just basically pick that up and put it into the consensus layer as so. So essentially, the network that you're used to is still operating. It's just now wrapped in a different consensus mechanism, and you really don't have to worry about any of the network being different. So some of the biggest misconceptions, as I mentioned earlier, were, will these upgrades actually reduce transaction fees? No. So there will be no direct impact on network activity fees, but there is more work being done in this regard related to MEV and so forth at the protocol level. And then will this increase scalability and throughput of the blockchain? So no, scaling on Ethereum will actually come through a roll-up-centric roadmap, and then layer 2s will address scalability issues without compromising decentralization. And then also rely on the security models of Ethereum on the layer 1. Will Ethereum continue working on sharding? Yes, it will come post-merge, and you can learn about that more as necessary. Will ETH issuance decrease after the merge? So yes, it will decrease by approximately 90%. And then if you couple that with the burn of the gas fees, this actually means that ETH inflation will be net zero or negative. So Ethereum basically becomes a deflationary asset at that point. So people have an issue about why we don't really have clear dates around the merge and when it's happening. And one of the reasons is, unlike other forks or upgrades, we're not really relying on block numbers as a timing mechanism, but rather terminal total difficulty, which actually allows for better risk assurances. There's no risk of actually uncovering another chain. The cost of actually spending that hash power is similar to on mainnet, so there's really no incentives for people to try to game the system. So in this situation, clients listen for the total terminal difficulty, and when the client sees a block that has a higher difficulty, it initiates the process. And once that block is seen with the total terminal difficulty that's higher than the TTD, it will be deemed the final POW block. That means that any future blocks that are created will be on the beacon chain. And then the transition is complete once the TTD block has finalized on the beacon chain, and then the clients stop gossiping POW blocks altogether. So in the concept of like the merged roadmap, where we are is very close. So essentially in the next 4 or 5 days, the TTD for Goerli testnet will be initiated, and that's the last testnet right before the merge. And after that, we'll hopefully get to the mainnet, perhaps before DEF CON, but there would really have to be a catastrophic issue if we didn't go past December. So it's hopefully within the next few months and before New Year's, essentially. So some more common misconceptions is, do I need expensive hardware to become a validator? So technically, no, validator clients can actually be run on smaller devices such as Raspberry Pis with like the right client and software hardware pairing, and are quite energy efficient, as mentioned, to a computer device. Do I need to actively participate in Ethereum staking? Yes, so Ethereum is actually not a dedicated proof of stake ecosystem, and requires you to actively validate and make attestations on the network to earn your stake Ether, but there's also other solutions like pooled staking services or staking services that allow you to kind of get that experience. Do I need to have 32 Ether to stake on Ethereum? Yes, currently as an independent staker you do. As mentioned, there's other services that allow you to pool your Ether to kind of get those opportunities. And there's also work being done on distributed validator technologies that will obviously be a boon for the Asian ecosystem to be able to afford these staking machines, because that's not a small amount of change. Will withdrawals become available at the merge? No. So withdrawals will become available in the next update, which is probably 6 to 12 months post the merge at that point. Will transaction rewards be available at the merge? So yes, the rewards from transaction fees will be provided to the validators immediately, given that you've provided the proper fee recipient address to the client software. So if I stake and my validator goes down, will I get slashed? So this is one of the things that people are most afraid of when they're trying to think about validating or staking on Ethereum. The answer is no. Slashing is actually a mechanism designed to punish bad actors and usually occurs in very rare cases, maybe like 0.2% or something has occurred in the past. Usually is because they try to run redundant systems, and it's encouraged for individual and solo stakers to not really try to do that. Do I need 100% uptime to remain profitable? Again, this is a misconception. You really don't. But it is important that you do try to keep a healthy node, and then your proportion leak is quite in line with the revenue generation. So if you go down for a few days, or a few weeks, or in the year, you're really not going to be impacted too drastically. Should I be running a minority consensus layer client? Yes, not only for the health of the network, but if you're with the majority client and something goes wrong, you actually get penalized more than you would if you had something go wrong with the minority client. So that's something you need to be aware of as well. And then I need to run an execution layer client? Yes. So with the merge, everyone that was running a node also needs to run an execution layer client. And then it's just as important from a decentralized perspective to choose a client that isn't GET or a majority client. And we're actually at a position in the ecosystem to kind of like change that narrative and then have an equal opportunity to use some of the other clients with the merge. So getting started with Ethereum staking, there's a few options for you. You can have solo home staking, individuals just running their own nodes. This is the dream for decentralized networks. Basically, it's the most impactful, gives you full control, full rewards, and you operate in a fully trustless manner. On top of that, there's staking as a service, so they use your 32 Ether in a whole. You utilize your validator keys, but then you entrust your node operations to these services to take care of, and they take fees on top of that. In addition, there's pooled staking, so services like Lido, a Rocket Pool, where you can stake any amount, earn rewards. It's pretty simple, and these are quite popular, and we'll see how much of the ecosystem is kind of relying on these technologies versus actually taking the ownership of their nodes at this point. And then the least impactful is actually centralized exchanges, and it's not really recommended that you rely on those for staking. So as far as the different Ethereum consensus clients, there's 5 top clients at this point. The community has actually done very amazing work to make sure that none of the clients are majority over 33%. We're getting better and better health over the network there. But as mentioned, at the execution layer, we still have issues with GET having most of the majority close to 80%. And this is where some of the focus needs to be. If you want to learn a little bit more about how to stake or get involved with staking from the Launchpad, you can visit that website or scan that QR code. So this is one of the main reasons I came to Seoul, and I really appreciate the work that Erica and KryptoSeoul are doing with bringing more events and more coverage to Asia, because most of the validator nodes are currently being operated within Europe and North America, and as you can see, South America, the MENA region, and Asia has very little coverage. And we talk a lot about decentralization and what we wish to accomplish as far as this ecosystem being accessible to everyone, but the consequences of our actions are that we might be making the same mistakes that existed in past systems. So Seoul or South Korea is only represented by 0.7% nearly of validators, similar to Japan and so forth. So it's really important that you guys that have opportunities to educate individuals about the nuances of decentralization and the purpose of why we're even in this ecosystem and what we're trying to accomplish. It's really important that we try to look at it from a macro perspective and how we can do a better job of educating people. So as mentioned, staking deposit by category, majority of individuals are still using staking pools and exchanges because of the complications around UX and the resources that are required and the education that is required for people to actually start running nodes or validating on the network. So if you do have the skills or the interest, there's a lot of opportunity for you to get involved in creating tools and resources for people to actually understand some of this technology a little bit better. So as I was mentioning, we talk a lot about decentralization in the ecosystem, but the reality is the majority of key ownership is controlled by centralized exchanges. Node infrastructure is happening on cloud, Amazon AWS. Data availability is all coming from Infera. Staking is being controlled by centralized exchanges, staking pools. Network security is at risk through majority clients. And then dApps are even seeing centralization effects with certain things such as like OpenSea taking control. So we have to be really mindful when we're focusing on projects to work on, technologies that we're trying to create to really keep decentralization at the heart and try to incentivize and educate individuals that are coming new to the ecosystem to make sure that they understand this is the core value and these are the core issues that we should also be looking at when looking at the value proposition that we bring to the ecosystem. So another misconception is that you need to stake to be a node operator in the Ethereum ecosystem. That's not true. You can actually run a node, and this is a great resource for you to kind of learn and get started. The first thing that I did when I got into the Ethereum ecosystem was try to run a node, and I encourage everyone to kind of learn about the privacy, security, start relying less on third-party servers, especially if you're developing dApps, resources, et cetera. It's really important for you to see the core of the censorship resistance, improve the health of the network, and then kind of take ownership and participate in the network more intimately. On top of that, what do you really need to get ready for the merge? So as a staker or validator of the network, you need to be following updates that are coming from the foundation on the blog regularly. You should be testing and participating in testnets to make sure you're ready for the switch. Make sure that you are now running the execution client as mentioned earlier. But as a regular user, you should not have to do much. Just be aware of scams and make sure you're not falling for any traps. And then as a developer, if you're using any block numbers as a proxy for time, so going from like 30 seconds and some variance, you'll actually have to change that to always be a multiple of 12, and that will be more true after the merge. In addition, if you want to learn about becoming a validator or staking or running a node, join the Validator Academy. It's going to be a very easy, explain it to me like I'm 5 resource where we provide information about how to understand some of these complications around how to run this stuff, provide some UIs and so forth, and hopefully this will be coming in time and along with the merge. Also on top of that, if you have the opportunity, please do come to DevCon Bogota. I know tickets are quite difficult to grab, but there's a lot of amazing events happening post and pre-event. And there's a lot of opportunities for you to really ingrain yourself in like a third world economy, learn the impact, and we're trying to really get a lot of encouragement around Asia and other regions as well. So it would be great to have more representation from these regions participating in the event. And also, if you have the opportunities, please do attend ETH Ho Chi Minh. It's amazing that we're getting more representation in these regions, and we'd hope to see more and more individuals come to that. Thank you very much, and that's it.